Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarev's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So we are continuing with this middle game strategy and middle game planning series with this common recognition of common pawn structures, and today we'll continue this so-called Maroczy bind. We did the Maroczy bind from White's perspective with this common ideas to play with the Maroczy bind. The Maroczy bind, let us remind here that this is the setup by White with this c4 e4 pawns here because White wants to gain some space. White wants to push you out here, and why I'm showing you really so much of this common pawn structures. I think it's really important to recognize these pawn structures because sometimes in my own games I want to go into common pawn structure because then I have the common ideas in the continuation of the game. So a couple of days ago I played a club match and I wasn't sure what to do, and then I transposed into the so-called King's Indian pawn structure setups, which I will also explain in this series. And then I had a really nice plan to push this common f5 f4 pawn breakthrough and managed to win the game. So that's why you see sometimes it's really important to recognize these pawn structures just in order to have a clear plan, and that's of course important because you want to continue to continue well in the game. You want to know what to do, you know what you want to know what are your opponent's threats and what are your own possibilities. So let's see now this Maroczy bind from Black's perspective. You see White hasn't made mistakes so far because he has a very nice control with the bishop here on d4, so very nice central control. Here e4 c4, the knight is on c3 on a natural square. The bishop is also good, although the main problem in this setups for White could be this bishop on e2, which is sometimes blocked out by its own pawns. So the queen is developed here, removed from the first rank. So as said, White hasn't made mistakes so far. He played the opening very correctly, and you see sometimes you could get pushed away simply by this huge space advantage in the center by White. So today I wanted to suggest you one particular move order, this so-called knight on c5 outpost, which is really important. I think you could play on this outpost because outposts in chess are really important to fix your position around one particular square. You can fix it maybe with your rook, knight, or bishop. The most often of outposts are with the knight, and today we do the so-called knight on c5 outpost. So in order to create this knight on c5 outpost here, so that's now our target. We want to really fix this position around this particular square. It's important to create sort of a blockade system on dark squares, and first of all here the correct move is the bishop on c6. Okay, it's already challenging the pawn on e4, and here White in most of these examples will go with this move f3. This f3 supports this really firm pawn structure, but you see it weakens also now this light square bishop more. As I said, this could be the main problem for White in the continuation, and it also weakens a little bit the dark squares around the king. So here, if you're familiar with my previous videos of this Basics in Chess series and with some middle game strategy and middle game planning, you should really know this common relation between bishops and pawns. So because White has all of his pawns here on the light squares, we don't mind to give up maybe our dark square bishop because the dark square bishop is the best protector of these dark squares, and of course we want to get rid of it, although we are giving up maybe one piece that's good on our side. But you see, after a trade of bishops, White could really continue the game with a very weak e2 bishop. So here after f3, here this very important move a5, and I've explained it in my hyper accelerated Dragon Sicilian defense series. Also you can also watch my preparation while playing against e4. Here this a5, it supports this very important knight on c5 outpost, creating sort of a blockade system because then White cannot play the move b4. in order to play maybe and prepare this move b4, white will need many moves. He will need the move b3, a3, rook on b1, and then b4. So you see 4 moves just in order to kick away your knight. Meanwhile, you can improve the position of your pieces. Here, after b3, you see this is a preparation to do this. Now knight on d7, we have bishop on e3, and now knight on c5. And okay, now white can try rook on b1, then followed, as I said, with a3 and b4. Meanwhile, we have to be fast. Now, after rook on c1, which is also one line that can happen in order to support here also this very important c4. And if you have followed my Maroczy bind as white, you know that this common knight on d5 outpost is still also possible here for white. So that's why here bishop on e5, after rook on d1, now e6. This is important because we are not allowing, because we know what white wants to do. So that's why I explained this Maroczy bind first from white's perspective. We want to prevent now this knight on d5 idea, which could create a huge space advantage for white. If white managed to fix the position around this d5 square, you see we will really blocked out here on the 5th rank, and it's hard to battle against this huge advantage by white. So here rook on c2 was played, and I've seen many of these games with the same particular move order. When the instructive game that I wanted to show you, it was played by Constantin Lupulescu against Eduardo Iturizaga. Eduardo Iturizaga is really one of my favorite players because he basically chooses the same openings that I do, and when I analyze many of these hyper accelerated Dragon Sicilian games and the King's Indian, many games are played by him, and many games I have downloaded from some chess websites simply by him, and I've really fascinated by this player. He plays basically the same openings, and I'm really happy because I have someone to follow, and I really apply his systems in my own games, and it's not that I copy him. I just see that he's playing really nice openings, and of course I want to play the same. I want to improve my opening skills, and I really like this player. So rook on c2, we have queen on e7, and this is also a common move, queen on e7, you see, or maybe queen on b6. The queen on b6 could create here a discovered attack, but now because we have a little bit with e6 weakened the pawn structure, it's important to have this rook on d8, because this rook on d8, or maybe rook from a to d8, supports this d6, and we build this so-called wall here because white pieces cannot jump around, cannot move centrally, and now we are our only weakness in the position is the d6, and we want to support it, of course. So, and here knight on b5, and this is now a huge moment in the game, because I want you really to memorize this knight on b5, because when your opponent plays this knight on b5 without playing maybe bishop on f1 or maybe bishop on f2. If your opponent plays bishop on f1 or maybe bishop on f2, don't do this, what I'll show you now. But if he hasn't played this bishop on f1 or bishop on f2, basically after knight on b5, believe me or not, it's game over for white. So because you see it's a positional game here, but it changes now into a tactical one. Here we have queen on h4 attacking this h2, and these are these games, as I said, why I like this Iturizaga so much, because when you're playing openings, when you're playing this common openings, when you're familiar with some particular lines, you want to have sort of a one game which reminds you always of this possible tactical ideas in the continuation. So here this is a common h4 outpost here by the queen, and what to do here for white. If we place h3, then we can play queen on g3, queen on h2, so it cannot be prevented. And here after g3 we have this common tactical shot, bishop takes on g3, h takes g3, queen takes g3, now king on f1, and now we have knight on e4. It's really unbelievable. It'll be giving up 2 pieces. If f takes e4, we have f5. So e5 is not possible because you get bishop on g2, and then it's checkmate here for white. So that's why knight on d4 could be a continuation. But now again, f takes e4. If you try bishop on f3, we have e5 attacking the knight. Bishop on f2 could be continuation. Queen on h2. Now bishop on g2. Now queen on h1. Here king on queen on f2, and now queen on h3. You see it's really dangerous here, because now we can simply take out the bishop, and then after that the knight, and we have here 3 pawns on the king side, and it will be game over for white. Still many tactical lines are possible here, but believe me or not, after this knight on b5, it's basically game over for white. Here let's see the continuation after knight on e4, which was played in the game. Here queen on d3 was played. Now f5, supporting this space advantage here, because again I'm pointing you out, f takes e4 is not possible. So that's why knight on d4, we have now f4, knight takes on c6, we have f takes e3, queen takes e3, and now rook on f4, supporting this very important knight. Here knight on d4 was played. Now rook on h4, important move, because now we are threatening rook on h1. Here queen on g1 was played, and now you can find the best move here. It's a very strong deflection motif. It's rook on h1, and in this position white resigned, because if you take, then we have queen on f2, a very nice check. So you see, let's go back. Here after bishop on d4, really important. First bishop on c6, challenging this pawn on e4, f3, and now a5. This is the move order you should really recognize while playing against this Maroczy bind. Then in the continuation, trying this knight on c5 outpost, e6, building this wall in order to prevent our opponent to jump on d5. Here rook on c1, as said, bishop on e5, bringing the bishop on this very nice diagonal. If your opponent tries somehow maybe f4 in order to kick you away, you can play the bishop takes on c3. After queen takes on c3, we have knight takes on e4, so we could support then the knight with f5. It could be a problem because we gave up the dark square bishop here, but it's not defendable, because we can play f5 and maybe rook on f2, h6, king on h7, supporting really this g7 weakness. And as I said, it's defendable in this position. If that happens, you have really equalized the position in an early stage of the game, which is your main goal while playing as black. So let's see now another game. It was a game played by Yu Ruiyan against Liu Kingan, and here again we have a Maroczy bind set up by white. Again, this idea: bishop on c6, f3, now knight on d7, bishop on e3, and now a5. Again, supporting this potential knight outpost on c5. Here b3, knight on c5, rook on c1. Now again, bishop on e5, rook on d1, e6, and now bishop on d4. Now white tries a different move order. He tries again to challenge them. The bishop on e5, but it doesn't matter if white even trades off these bishops on dark squares. Of course, we have to remove first the queen from the 8th rank. In the continuation, again, I'm pointing you out that this bishop would be really weak, and it's again blocked out by its own pawns. Here queen on b6, here we have bishop on e5, but that was a mistake, because we have knight on d3, and it's basically game over, because after king on h1 we will have this common smothered mate with the queen and the knight. So after knight on d3, white simply resigned. So you see, it's hard for white to do something here on these dark squares, because many moves were played by white with his bishop. White didn't realize what to do. Should I trade it off? Should I play positionally here? And got punished because he removed this bishop too many times. So let's see now another game, and I'm pointing out we have again Eduardo Idorizaga here playing. So many of these games that I'm suggesting you are simply played by him. Here again we have this a5, b3, knight on d7. Here bishop on f2 was played, but now knight on c5, again this outpost. So as I said, again pointing you out after rook on b1, a3, b4 ideas. Well, many moves have to be played by white just in order to kick away the knight on c5. It is played in some variations, but meanwhile, as you can see, you can build here the setup with after rook on c1 we have bishop on e5 again, rook on d1 again, e6, restricting the ability of this knight to play. Here bishop on d4 was played, and here again this queen on b6 idea. Now the queen removes, we have a4, which is also important because here black fights against this potential b4 move. He fights it immediately because he wants to undermine this pressure on the queen side, because in one of my videos I've also explained you that this common idea by white while playing the Maroczy bind is also sort of on queen side pawn breakthrough. So here with this a4 we're preventing this idea. Here rook on b1 was played, a takes b3, we have bishop takes on e5, now d takes e5, a takes b3, and now rook on d8. So you see how important it was to remove the queen from the 8th rank. Now we are challenging really white on this very important d file. Queen on g5 was played, rook takes on d1, rook takes on d1, and now knight on d7, protecting this e5 pawn. And again, I'm pointing you out that this bishop is weak. White has still problems on dark squares because he gave up this dark square bishop. We can always support here the pawn on e5 with f6, and then maybe go king on g7, bring our king in security. And in the continuation of the game, okay, Idorizaga managed to win the game very effectively. But here is the square we should maybe try to put our knight again, because we will then have a transposition from knight on c5, then searching here our knight on d4 outpost, because white has already played this e4 and c4. So there is no pawn on the c or e file which could challenge this knight outpost on d4. So that's why in the continuation, that's our main goal, that's our main idea. We should really try this knight on d4 outpost, which cannot be challenged by any piece of white. So knight on b5 was played. Now we have queen on f2, very strong move, attacking the bishop. Queen on d2, now removing the knight, because we want to continue the game again with this very weak bishop, because after c takes b5, again the bishop is blocked out by its own pawns. Here all of these pieces, all of these pawns are on like squares, which is not good. The bishop is not a mobile one. Here knight on c5, again the same outpost. Here we have rook on b1, but now knight takes on b3. White cannot capture the knight, because then you get rook on a1, which could lead into a checkmate. Here queen on d3, now rook on a2, attacking the bishop. Queen on d8 with a check, king on g7, queen on c7, now queen on d4. Again, white cannot take the knight on b3, because again rook on a1, bishop on f1, now knight on d4, knight on d2, attacking this rook and the bishop. So here rook on c1, knight takes on f3. You cannot take, of course, because then you get queen on f2 with the potential checkmate. Here we have g takes f3, but now here or queen on b2, and it's basically game over here, because here black took the queen on c1. We have rook takes on c1, rook takes on e2, and here you see black is simply better, because these two pawns are simply weak. We have a situation 5-on-3 on the king side, and it's a completely winning endgame here for black. Okay, let's go back. as said, after bishop on d4, this is our main idea. Bishop on c6, a5, knight on d7, knight on c5. This outpost, you see, many moves have to be played in order to kick away this knight. Of course, white's never gonna give up his dark square bishop for the knight, because after maybe something like this, we will have a very nice bishop outpost on d4, which could be deadly for white, because he has many weaknesses on dark squares around the king, and here, of course, I think it's completely better to play as black here. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. We will continue this Maroczy bind. We will continue the ideas for black while playing against the Maroczy bind with some f5 and d5 pawn breakthrough possibilities. And meanwhile, you can watch, also, of course, my other basics in chess series with some opening principles, middle game strategies, endgame strategies. And you can also watch my chess tactics and chess puzzles, in which I show you all of the possible tactical motifs in it that can happen in a chess game. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.